Hey guys, welcome to IT, all things economics, where economics clicks.
We are Leanne
And Narissa.
and we're two young economics students who got tired of people saying economics is boring or too hard.
We're here to make complex economic ideas simple, using real-world examples and everyday anecdotes, showing that economics isn't just theory in a textbook, but something you live and experience every day.
At the end of the day, economics doesn't have to be confusing. It can actually click.
In today's episode, we will explore wealth gaps and why the rich get richer in the first half, and debates over taxation in the second half. Let's get started.
Why the rich get richer and wealth gaps. People often say the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. This phenomenon describes the increasing income inequality where the majority of wealth falls into the hands of a few. The pattern has been clear globally as seen in the surge of billionaire wealth to $16.1 trillion as of March 7, 2025. That's up from $14.2 trillion just last April, according to Forbes' billionaires list. Meanwhile, 808 million people globally live in extreme poverty as of June 2025, according to the World Bank. This poses the question, how come the wealth gap in today's world is barely improving? To better understand this, I will explain to you using simple analogies, giving you small snapshots revealing the hidden mechanism behind inequality. Before we get started, let me go over some definitions. Income. Income is the money received on a regular basis. This could be from a job, welfare payment, interest, or dividends. Wealth. Wealth is a stock of assets, for example, houses, shares, savings, and bonds. Income inequality. This is the unequal distribution of income across a nation. Wealth inequality. This is the unequal distribution of assets. Poverty trap. A mechanism where people are forced to stay poor and cannot escape from poverty. Now that I've gone over the definitions, we can explore some of the points as to why the wealth gap is the way it is. Point number 1, poverty trap. Wealth doesn't just grow because of hard work. It grows because money itself creates more money. Thus, those without much to begin with often find themselves stuck, spending every last dollar on survival rather than building tomorrow. This is what we call the poverty trap. Picture this. Tom earns just enough to cover his food and rent. Every day, he decides whether to spend $2 on bus fare or walk 2 hours to work. If he chooses to pay for the fare, he will have less money for food. If he walks, he'll arrive at work exhausted, affecting his productivity, posing a risk to losing his job. One day, he thinks about taking a course to improve his qualification, but this costs him $200, money that he doesn't have. Without this qualification, his wages stay low. Without higher wages, he can't afford the course. This cycle keeps him trapped. This is because he needs more money to escape poverty, but escaping poverty requires money he doesn't have. This leads me to my second point, inheritance and generational wealth. Inheritance and generational wealth is all about the transfer of income and wealth from generation to come. Families with accumulated wealth can pass it down to their children, giving them a financial head start. In addition, wealth can compound over time because each generation builds on what the previous one left behind. On the contrary, families without wealth often pass down very little, meaning each generation must start from scratch, relying on wages and struggling to accumulate assets. This creates and sustains inequality. In advanced economies, 50 to 60% of household wealth can attribute to intergenerational transfers, according to OECD in 2021. This means inequality does not just reflect differences in efforts, but also reflects accumulated advantage being passed down. Financial literacy also plays a major role in wealth gaps. Among the wealthy, financial literacy is encouraged, giving them the knowledge to manage money wisely. They know how to invest in stocks, real estate, or businesses, and they often grow up in households where money management is discussed and practiced. On the other hand, the lower class lacks exposure to these financial skills. Without knowing how to save, invest, or avoid debt traps, their income is quickly spent on day-to-day needs, leaving little chance for long-term wealth plans. This knowledge gap has real consequences. Someone who doesn't understand compound interest may leave their savings in a low-yield account, while financial literate investors put their money in stocks or property that generate far higher returns. Today, organizations like Jumpstart in the US, Money Help in the UK, Money Sense in Singapore, and mobile literacy efforts in Kenya exist to try to bridge this gap. However, financial literacy alone cannot close the gap. It simply reduces one of the many advantages the wealthy already have. Point number 4. Capital return growth is far greater than wage growth. In the long run, stock markets around the world have delivered real returns of around 5% according to the Times in 2024. Countries such as the US have been booming, generating an impressive 6.9% real returns over a similar time frame according to Motivator and MarketWatch. On the other hand, wages had a real growth of 1.8% in 2023 and was projected to reach 2.7% in 2024, the highest increase in more than 15 years, according to ILO's report and staffingindustry.com. In Japan, recent data shows a 0.5% rise in real wages year on year. Even though the wage rates are increasing, the real returns in the stock market still outpace wages by a far. This means that people who already own these assets see their wealth multiply quicker, which usually tends to be the wealthier population. All these factors are what contribute to why the rich get richer and wealth gaps. Consequently, when wealth is concentrated into the hands of a few, its effects ripple through society and social mobility declines as poorer families struggle to break out of poverty trap. In addition, economic efficiency suffers and inequality reduces mass purchasing power. In conclusion, the saying "the rich get richer" reflects economic reality. Wealth grows not simply because of hard work, but because money itself creates more money. Those who already hold assets enjoy compounding returns, inheritance, financial literacy, and favorable systems guarding their wealth. Meanwhile, those without assets often remain trapped, unable to break through. I hope by now you better understand why the rich get richer and wealth gaps. If you have any question, please reach out to us and we'll be sure to get back to you. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening, and I welcome you to the second half of this podcast.
After Leanne's great discussion on why the rich get richer and wealth gaps, we will be transitioning into the debate over taxation. Common student perceptions of taxation are that it's just money the government takes from us. It only comes from our wages, and or taxes are unfair and too complicated. Whilst there is merit to this argument, it is not completely certain that taxation is solely a burden, as it partially funds public services such as the TGV high-speed rail in France. Moreover, it helps redistribute income, which narrows income inequality. And it also influences behavior in societies. For example, Scotland has an alcohol tax based on a minimum unit price, which sets a minimum price per unit of alcohol. It is currently 65 pence per unit of alcohol. This discourages alcohol-related harm by targeting the cheapest alcohol products that contribute to high consumption levels. To start us off on the debate over taxation, we'll be defining what taxation means. Taxation can be simply described as government revenue and a withdrawal from the incomes and spendings of households, businesses, and investors. As you later learn, if you don't already know, taxation is a key fiscal policy instrument. There are two main streams of taxation: direct tax and indirect tax. We will start off by discussing direct tax. Direct tax is levied on income, wealth, and profit and are different in each country. Many direct taxes are progressive. According to Tutor to You, this is where the average rate of tax as a percentage rises as income increases. Richer households pay a higher percentage of their incomes in tax than poorer families. This slightly debunks the idea that taxes are unfair, since having some direct taxes being progressive, it ensures that the burden doesn't fall disproportionately on lower income households. However, the fairness of taxation depends on the nature of government. In countries with higher level of corruption, tax systems are often inequitable, reinforcing perceptions of unfairness, which we will shortly be reviewing. Firstly, income tax is a direct tax levied by the government on the earnings of individuals and is often progressive. This includes wages, salaries, interest, dividends, and rental income used to raise revenue for public spending. Denmark leads with one of the highest top marginal income rates at around 55.9% according to the Tax Foundation, whilst a number of tax-free countries impose 0% income tax, including places like the UAE. This is partially why people buy real estate in countries like the UAE. No personal income tax is a large benefit, as it means that residents don't pay tax on salaries, investments, or rental income, making the country look more attractive. Secondly, wealth tax is a type of direct tax that is imposed on an individual's net worth or the market value of their total owned assets minus liabilities, also known as equity. This also proves that tax does not only involve income tax. And thirdly, corporate tax is money businesses pay to the government on their profits and is often proportional, meaning everyone pays the same percentage rate of tax, regardless of profit level. The UK standard corporate tax rate is 25%. Contrary to the United Kingdom, the Cayman Islands have 0% corporate tax, no capital gains tax, no inheritance tax, and no wealth tax. This encourages businesses to set up subsidiaries, shell companies, or holding companies in the Cayman Islands. So picture this. I'm running a business in London, and every time I make a bit of profit, the taxman swoops in like a bouncer at the club and demands 25% of my corporate profit. After a while, I get tired of handing in a quarter of my profit and hear about the Cayman Islands, so I decide to set up shell companies over there. After all, it's like stepping into a resort and having a tax-free drink. No wonder multinationals, which are businesses that operate and conduct business activities in at least one other country, make use of such strategies in order to avoid tax payments. However, many firms have gotten criticized because of this action due to the lack of transparency. The lack of transparency links to corruption, which contributes to why people think that taxes are unfair and complicated. In recent weeks, TikTok's For You pages have been flooded with video clips exposing the shocking reality behind some public officials' lifestyles. Politicians, their families, and contractors have been seen flaunting expensive cars, designer brands, and opulent houses, all while lower-income Filipinos bear the burden of flooding, traffic, and rising costs. According to AP News, $5.4 billion was allocated for flood control infrastructure and water resource development in the Philippines this year. However, back-to-back typhoons in July have led to 300,000 plus people being displaced and has damaged nearly 3,000 houses. As this has been happening, contractors are getting richer and richer by the months pass by, whilst protesting their innocence. This corruption fuels misconceptions about taxation. However, it is important to remember that this case simply illustrates how taxation can be perceived negatively when mismanaged. Another reason why people think that taxes are unfair is because of a type of tax called indirect tax. Indirect tax are a form of regressive tax. In a simplified manner, according to Tutor to You, regressive tax is where the average rate of tax as a percentage decreases as income increases. Lower income households pay a higher percentage of their income in tax than richer families. Types of indirect tax include value-added tax, VAT, which is a tax added on each stage of production on final sales. The UK standard VAT rate is 20% on most goods and services. To name a few more, indirect tax also involves excise duties, which is a tax on specific goods usually harmful or inelastic, custom duties, which are taxes on imports and exports, and environmental tax, which aims to reduce negative externalities. Although indirect taxes may be viewed as unjust, they offer clear advantages such as discouraging harmful consumption, raising government revenue, encouraging behavioral change, and they provide a quick and flexible policy tool. The minimum unit pricing tax on alcohol that Scotland has implemented is an example of an indirect tax. Now, We're going to be giving you extra knowledge that is often forgotten about in order to make you stand out against other candidates. This involves knowing the difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance. Tax evasion involves illegal practices like underreporting income, falsifying accounts, or hiding money in shadow markets. Now, imagine a group of traders in the tobacco industry. At first, they sell through legal channels, paying excise duties and VAT. But as indirect taxes increase to discourage smoking, the official retail prices rise sharply. Sensing an opportunity, some traders slip into the shadows of black market. They start importing tobacco illegally and don't pay customs duty and excise taxes. Counterfeit cigarettes appear on the street at half the legal price. This may look like a bargain for consumers. However, it leads to a loss in government revenue, a decline in public health, and it also distorts markets. This is a clear example of tax evasion. On the other hand, tax avoidance is the legal use of loopholes to reduce tax liability, such as the multinationals shifting profits through the Cayman Islands. So, after everything we've unpacked, we have looked at the big debates around tax. We have proved that those perceptions don't always hold up. Yes, tax can feel like a burden and sometimes governments misuse it, but it also funds public services and even shapes behavior. In other words, tax is an inevitable tool that makes economics function and societies run.
We are so glad you stuck this far. Thank you for tuning in. We hope we made economics a little easier and maybe even fun for you today.
Don't forget to share with a friend or family member. Follow us on our socials and catch the next episode where we will continue to break down economics.
Until then, this is 8.
All things economics, where
Economics clicks.